Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the land debate. We are coming to you live from the Uganda Museum, where we are having a debate linking women's land rights to women economic empowerment in the changing world of work. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight in this hall at the National Museum, we have people from all walks of life. We have people from the academia, we have those who are engaged in agriculture, we have business people, we have the civil society, we have students, and we have those who are doing all sorts of work. Why are we talking about land? Land is such an important resource in the development, without which you cannot have much. You have to have land to be able to control resources. If you look at agriculture today, it is having almost 80% of Uganda's population. And in fact, Uganda has about 50% of East Africa's arable land. So we are blessed as a country. But how about the people who are tilling our land? How about the women who are tilling our land? Do they have, authority over that land? Or one day somebody can just come and chase you away? So these are the issues that we'll be able to discuss about. It is an important question for Uganda today that we, the people who are involved on land, those who are producing there, in fact, even what they are producing on that land, they have authority, they have security over the land and their produce. It can never be business as usual unless these issues are sorted. Because we, the people of Uganda today, in the 21st century, we should be able to solve our issues amicably without considering the traditional setbacks. Because in most cases we have said, well, it's a patriarchal society. But it's going to be patriarchal until when? There must be a time when the people of Uganda are discussing like today. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as a welcome the Executive Director of UWONET to come and give us her remarks, introducing remarks to this gathering, and later I'll be introducing the panelists who will speak to us, and then you'll be putting questions to them, but also adding the value of this discussion, getting from the information that you know. Put your hands together for Rita Achiro.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Uganda Women's Network and the women's movement in Uganda, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this debate, the live debate, and good afternoon to all our viewers out there. We have provided the platform this afternoon for us as women of Uganda to come and discuss issues of land, and as much as possible to try and reach out as many people as possible using the media, because we know there are many people who would love to be here but are not able to be here with us. The women of Uganda are the biggest contributors to the agricultural sector in this country, meaning that the women produce over 80% of the food we eat and over 60% of the agricultural export that we produce as a country. However, when you look at the statistics in terms of how much land they own, it is not even half of what they produce. And the question is, if women owned at least half of the land in Uganda, how much more would we be producing? And how far would we develop as a country? We are also here to interrogate the fact that while land is a productive resource, it is also a sense of identity. And therefore, the national laws, policies that we introduce should be humane enough to protect the human rights of citizens and understand land is not just a productive resource, but a sense of identity for many people in Uganda and in Africa, I want to believe. We also know that Uganda as a country has developed a number of laws and indeed a national land policy in 2013, which is quite progressive. However, how many of our people know the protection they have in the Constitution in regard to land, in the Land Act, in the Local Government Act, and in the operationalization of the National Land Policy of 2013. The government introduced the National Land Policy. It has very progressive recommendations in terms of amendments of the current laws we have in this country. For example, the National Land Policy recommends that we review our Marriage Act, our Divorce Act, our Succession Act, and a number of laws. As of today, many of these still remain unknown to Ugandans. And yet you find that it is the same Ugandans who are objecting to some of the laws to be amended. We want to bring to you this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the commitments that government have made to ensure that Ugandans are protected, but also interrogate further why these commitments are not being actualized. We as citizens, what is our role in ensuring that government plays its part in protecting the rights of citizens to land, and particularly of women and girls? It is our hope that this afternoon, that's why in Patrick's introduction, you see that we have all groups of women and men today. We have the academicians, we have civil society, we have women from the market, we have students, we have people who have worked in the land sector, and many others out there. All of us have a responsibility. The other aspect we want to interrogate further, around last year, 2015 rather, we developed what we call the Women's Manifesto. In the Women's Manifesto, one of the key pillars, we had 5 pillars. One of them is the protection of women's land and property rights. And we made very clear demands. The Land Fund for Women, the passing of the Marriage and Divorce Bill that guarantees the rights of men and women in, during, and in the eventuality if a marriage broke down, how property is managed so that people do not feel cheated during division of any property. These debates concern us as individuals, but they also are contributors to the poverty levels that we have in this country. Unfortunately, the majority of the poor are the women of Uganda. And yet, we are the same country that is looking ahead in terms of being a middle-income status. The question, are we going to be a middle-income status in the next 4 years when 52% of the population only own 27% of the land and using rudimentary ways and means to till that land in terms of a hand hoe? We are calling for retire the hoe, mechanize agriculture, and add value to agriculture. Thank you very much.
Give Rita another round of applause. She has, opened the debate by telling you what the issues are on land in Uganda and the people who are engaged in agriculture, that the biggest percentage of our population is actually engaged in agriculture, that if you look deeper, you'll find that it's women who are engaged more in agriculture, but sadly, those women do not have ownership of that land. And she was asking, what if at least 50% of those women could own the land? Wouldn't they maybe produce more? Wouldn't Uganda be a better country? How about the tools? How about the seeds, the quality of seeds that we have? So, and talked about the campaign they've had of retiring the hoe. So give her another round of applause as I invite our panelists who will be maybe going to specifics. You listen to them keenly so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to ask questions or even add to their presentation. So let me invite Professor Josephine Ahikire. Professor Josephine Ahikire is the Dean of School of Women and Gender Studies at Makerere University and acting Deputy Principal, College of Humanities and Social Science. She has researched and published extensively on women's rights issues, regarding herself as an active member of the women's movement. Once again, put your hands together for Professor Josephine Ahikire. Also, my next panelist is a lawyer by profession and a program coordinator with Action Aid. She has 8 years' experience in human rights. Welcome with me, Jennifer Achaloi. Also, with those two, we have another one who is from the Center for Basic Research, Dr. Sally Simba. Dr. Sally Simba. Okay, this is what it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. Jennifer Achalai will be sharing experience on practical solutions to address the women's land rights injustices and present the challenges faced in the current context. And Professor Josephine will be talking on the lived realities for women in respect to land in the current socio-economic and political context in Uganda. So let me give the microphone to Professor Josephine Ahikire. The floor is yours, Professor.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon, viewers. I would like to, first of all, thank UWONET for this very important debate. We are saying that in the current situation, land is one of those unfinished businesses in Uganda's political question. It is a political question which will need political answers and political solutions. I'm going to just give highlights of what I think we need to think about and put it on the political table for all actors to address. We know that the 1995 Constitution says land belongs to the people. Land belongs to the citizens. In accordance, who will use it under the 4 land tender systems. That is Milo land, customary, freehold, and public. Let me say that at the point, it looked like the 1995 Constitution had created a certain consensus that citizens need to be protected. And what I call that consensus is that it actually seemed to have created more dilemmas than it addressed. And when we look at women, we find that the dilemmas complicate the women's access or the roots of how women access land. I think I have to acknowledge the entrance of the minister.
Yes, let us welcome the minister with a round of applause. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for joining us on the land debate. You found when the panelists were beginning. And let me also, in that respect, also invite another panelist, Ms. Rose Atim-Obita, the head of program OXFAM, also to take your position in front. Okay, you could continue, Professor Josephine.
All right, thank you very much. So what I call the 1995 consensus is that it seemed to create temporary solutions. I will just give 2 examples. One is in regards to Milo land, which is predominantly in the central region. Milo land, accordingly, recognizes the rights of the landlord, who is the owner, and at the same time recognizes the occupants, the tenants, bona fide occupants. When it comes to proving ownership of rights, you find that the tenants have a bigger task to prove. So there is conflicting interests in that land. And when you find that tenants are evicted, it is women that suffer. It is women that now begin to bear the brunt of the unresolved political question. We have a case, for example, in Muwende, where a coffee plantation has been established 10 years back, Kaweri Coffee Plantation. In this, apparently, the owner of the land sold the land to Uganda Investment Authority, and people were evicted. They say that they were evicted without any compensation, yet they had lived on this land. For them, they claim bona fide rights. But in this very complication, you also find that women bore the brunt of that eviction. Children died, they starved, and even men got dislocated and became even more violent, abandoned homes and so on. That is a volatile situation that only government can resolve through resolving this stalemate in Milo land. The other question that we now need to address in terms of women's right to land is documented rights. There's a time Center for Basic Research was training women, in simple legal rights with regard to land. And there were 50 women in the room, and they were asked, how many of you are married? All of them, according to them. The second question was, do you have any paper that shows that you're married? 20. Do you have a picture that proves that you're married? Nothing. Meaning that these undocumented unions, when it comes to proving, when need arises to prove, it means that women will have a very weak position. That takes me now to the other unresolved question of customary land tenure. Customary land tenure is now provided in the Constitution. So it is a recognized land tenure system. Now, what is happening in the actual reality is that there is increasing individualization. People are actually making customary land as if it belongs to individuals. And when I talk about individuals, increasingly it is individual men. So you find that there is more and more of equating family land with men's land. This is something that is evolving rapidly in many of the areas, including even where customary or collective or community ownership, like in the north, is supposed to be strong. There is increasing individualization. Why do I bring in government here? The current reform is that government allows for registration of customary land by giving certificates of customary ownership, CCOs. This is actually a contradiction of terms. It is formalizing what is informal and creating another layer of vulnerability for women. When the moderator opened the debate, he remarked that we always say that women are disadvantaged, especially in the land sector, because we are a patriarchal society and that men dominate. But actually we need to also realize that historically there was more inclusion than exclusion in terms of access and use of land. So there was more access and use and less of dispossession. What we see now is that men are increasingly making customary land, making it into individually owned land. And it is being, in some areas, accentuated by the encouragement to register. Meaning that finally, even where there were spaces where women could access land, these will be closed because once land is individualized, it is easy to dispossess other people. It will be easy to dispossess women. It will be easy to dispossess children or other beneficiaries. What we are saying, therefore, is that the land question raises issues about what is legitimate. The law may be saying something, for example, people can register customary land. But the legitimate question is it going to be a dispossession of 52% of the population or not? There are a few women who are able to purchase land under freehold, under the market. That one is not under contention. What is under contention is land that is governed under the family arrangement, and where those rights need to be concretized. That is why some observers have said that perhaps land should belong to government. I'm saying this, I know it is very politically volatile. When land belongs to government, when it is being redistributed, it is being redistributed to citizens, women inclusive. When land belongs to men, when it is being redistributed, it is like you're taking away something from the inherent right of men. Men have this very inherent sense of entitlement to land. It's like they carried it physically from somewhere and brought it. When the women's group, democracy group, went to present constitutional proposals to Parliament, the chair listened very carefully and said, on representation, good, tick, we can have 50-50. On rationalization of salaries, government, public, tick, this is a good proposal. When it came to land, he said, over my dead body. My wife cannot have these rights. You people are being materialistic. So at that point, it became personal. And it was like he had carried this parcel from somewhere, just like when you feel that sense of entitlement. This is what the Constitution gives to men in this country. Land belongs. This land belongs to citizens is on paper. In reality, land belongs to men, and they feel that sense of entitlement. So we need to first deal with that and say that actually all citizens have entitlement. This is a natural resource, for heaven's sake. All these inheritance laws have been socially constructed. In legitimate terms, you cannot argue that I have the right to dispossess somebody. I have the right to evict somebody. That right should never exist. What should exist is the right to be included. And therefore, government has this duty to put its role, three aspects of its role: respect of rights across the board, protection of rights across the board, fulfillment of rights across the board. And finally, maybe what I want to end with, when I read the land policy, yes, it's good, as the Executive Director of UWONET indicated, but I would like us to say that women do not belong to a special group. Women are citizens. When you start saying women and children are vulnerable, it means you're creating a category of secondary citizens who will have secondary rights, especially to property and land rights. We need to say that women as citizens have an inherent right to the source, the key source of livelihood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Josephine Aikiri, the Dean, School of Women and Gender Studies. Honorable Minister, Professor was giving us realities for women in respect to land in the current socio-economic and political context in Uganda. And she's given us the highlights. Some of them, I think, can make women feel like angry. Why is the situation like this? But I think even if the situation can make you get angry, it's the better, because slowly by slowly, I think in the debates like these, we'll be getting solutions from amongst ourselves. It has come to my knowledge that Dr. Sally Simba will not be joining us for this debate from the Center for Basic Research, but we have a capable alternative, and let me invite Agnes Chirabo, who is the Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance, and she has worked on food governance, including agriculture policy, for over 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Agnes Chirabo. I also would like to change a little bit, if you allow me, permit me, Honorable Minister, so that you can be able to speak to the gathering before they can continue the presentation of the panelists. And you are giving us a keynote address on land policy and the proposed government land reforms and compulsory acquisition of land, understanding the protection measures for security of tenure in Uganda. And after your presentation, if you allow me, they can continue the panelists. After that, Honorable Minister, there will be a live plenary discussion with the people who are here and those who are following us on different platforms, on those who are streaming live on television and those who are following us on Twitter. Honorable Minister, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Moderator. I want to start by thanking UWONET for the invitation and to apologize for being late. We had a cabinet in Entebbe and I had to excuse myself out of cabinet to be with you because of this very, very important debate which touches women's issues and women's rights to land. My name is Betty Amongi, a Member of Parliament for Yam County South and the Minister of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, and I'm happy to be here. I want to start from the context of the law, the relevant laws. I am certain that probably the professor has gone through the legal instruments, or I should make assumption that she has not, and I highlight just a few of the bases within which we anchor our policy as a ministry. As you are aware, we have the 1995 Constitution. If you look at Article 21, talks about all persons are equal before the law in all spheres of political, economic, social and cultural life, and in all other aspects, and enjoys protection of the law. If you look at Article 31, it talks about the Constitution entitles women and men to equal rights during and after marriage. Article 33 is very, very clear on the issue of dignity, on the opportunities, and on the equal treatment of women and men. Now, if we look at the Land Act and all the relevant laws, we really have the laws that protect women's rights. I want to start from the predominant land tenure system that majority of women are faced with. That is the customary land tenure system, which over 70% of women are faced with the incidence of customary land tenure system. When you look at Section 27 of the Land Act, of course, there are several sections that deals with the issue of customary land registration, conversion of customary land tenure system from customary to freehold, and still all that captures how you do it, but specifically 27 reads as follows: rights of women, children, and persons with disability regarding customary land. Any decision taken in respect of land under customary tenure, whether in respect of land held individually or communally, shall be in accordance with the customs, traditions, and practices of the community concerned, except that a decision which denies women or children or persons with disability access to ownership, occupation, or use of any land, or imposes conditions which violates Article 33, 34, and 35 of the Constitution, or any ownership, occupation, or use of any land, shall be null and void. So I think when we talk about customary land ownership, we should start from that premise, that whether you are converting from customary as an individual owner, you are not allowed under Section 27 to deny women ownership. Whether you are, because we have freehold, conversion from customary to freehold, but we also have conversion from customary to communal land association, which we also title. All that is conditioned under 27. And at the moment, the national land policy captures this principle, but also the regulation, the land regulations that are used by the area land committees, because when you want to register interest in land, you start with the area land committee. All our documents as Ministry of Lands to the area land committee, to the district land board, when you're converting from customary to individual or customary land titling, you have to make sure that you include women and children. Of course, at the moment, what we need to look at is the implementation, but the law is very clear. Still under the Land Act, we amended in 2010 the Land Act to define customary land, what constitutes customary land. And the law clearly stated that customary land, and states that customary, under customary land, there is what we call matrimonial land, defined as land where the family derives sustenance. And that category of land, you are not supposed to sell or mortgage without the consent of the spouse. Of course, we had to put the spouse in consideration that there can be women who will also be having their customary homes and might register only to themselves. We did not end there. We went to the Mortgage Act. And 2005, we amended the Mortgage Act to state that you cannot mortgage a matrimonial land or matrimonial property without the consent of the spouse. And trust me, if you go to the bank now with a home and you want to mortgage a property, for those who have gone with a title, you will tell me whether the bank will not ask you, is this a matrimonial home or not? And if it is, in most cases, actually, there's a man recently I saw in the paper who had defaulted on a loan, and when he was taken to court, his defense was, the bank cannot take my property because when I mortgaged, my wife did not consent. Yes, that was, of course, business people are shrewd, but that is to show you that as far as the laws are concerned and the policy, we have gone a big step in trying to protect the rights of women on land. Currently, we are running a program sponsored by the World Bank. The project is called SLAC, that is Systematic Adjudication and Demarcation of Land. It is, to answer Professor when she talked about Milo land, we have the absentee landlords in the context of Buganda and Bunyoro, those who acquired land. Now, the policy of government is to purchase those titles from the landlords and redistribute it to the sitting tenants. And that would be towards our proposal of land redistribution by government. When a government is the one in charge of redistribution, how does the policy favor women? Under the current program, where we are purchasing land and redistributing, when we are registering the land, we make sure that the family members, all the family members, are registered in that title. I have personally been in the field in Kakumiru district, in Kibale district, in Kagadi district, where it is the first phase, and the registration and the guidelines are very clear. You must ensure that you include the wives and the family members in the title that we are conducting under SLAC. The other issue which is very vital is also on the issue of registration. What do we do at registration of titles? When the district land board and the district and the area land committees present their papers and deed plans for registration in the Ministry of Lands, when it is customary land ownership, we have to interrogate before we register that land and ask if there are no clear information in our forms that have included a spouse or family. We will query and send it back to the district land board. And the district land board has to give an explanation why the spouse or the family members are not contrary to Section 27. So it is also important that while the laws are supposed to be implemented at the local level, at the national level, we put a framework of monitoring, supervising, and ensuring that the implementation is being done. The other issue which we are looking at is the Succession Act, which we have looked as a Ministry of Land, and we are saying at the moment, of course, I see a lot of documents, succession documents in respect to land, where it is encouraging that you see more and more men now in when you're reading transfer from maybe a freehold title or a Milo title, we are seeing more and more people including all the children. For me, that is encouraging. I have seen because we have Milo land registry different from the freehold, but even in the Milo registry, you find a lot of people now putting all the children, both girl child and the boy child, in their subsequent registration of titles. So for me, that is encouraging, that in registration, but also we have gone further as a Ministry of Lands to even examine court records in respect to when there is divorce. How are courts ruling in respect to distribution of matrimonial property? And we have actually been encouraged more and more that in most of the court cases, you find that the courts are now cognizant of the fact that when people are in divorce settlement, the question of matrimonial property is dealt with very clearly. And most women, if you are able to prove that you were in that marriage, which goes to what Professor was talking about, the issue would be proof of marriage. But where people have proved that they are married, the distribution of matrimonial property in dissolution of marriage is being followed, the section of 27 and other relevant law. So what we only need to do is now to amend the Succession Act, which is now not under my ministry. That one is under Ministry of Justice. But we have given them our proposal that it is necessary that in the amendment of Succession Act should be done quickly. So in other words, maybe I touch a little bit on the Milo. She talked about the Milo and the multiple interests of land in the Milo system. But as you're aware, those who are from Buganda District Land Board started a process of registration of people under Milo title, but also to give them certificate of occupancy. But still, in giving them some kind of guidance as a ministry, we have made it very clear that when they are dealing with registration of certificate of occupancy by the Buganda Land Board, they have to take into consideration when the bona fide occupants are married, they should make sure that registration complies with Section 27 of the Land Act. So that also we are working with the Buganda Land Board, because Buganda Land Board has to implement the government policy. Of course, at the moment, there are other proposals as a ministry that we are putting in place to further enhance and protect the land rights of women. We are also reviewing and regulating the customary rules to avoid violation and abuse of family land held in trust. What we are doing is we are meeting all the cultural leaders and the kings and the what, because they are the custodians. The law says this customary land is held according to customs of that area. Now what we are doing is to engage the traditional leaders and cultural leaders to reform their cultural norms and values that can be in tandem with this Section 27, to let them know that also Article 31, 32, 33 talks about cultures and tradition that violates the rights of women are null and void. So this we have to engage with these people who are custodian of the rules related to customary land ownership. We are also looking at implementing a regime of matrimonial property law that is aimed at the protection of the spouse, both within marriage and outside marriage. And then, of course, the famous one, which we need a legal provision for joint or co-ownership of family land and matrimonial property. That's the one that is very crucial. Either joint in Rwanda, once you go to register your land, it is 50-50. It is in the law that registration is 50-50. So you say joint ownership between a wife and a husband, and they put it clearly in the register of land title. 50% for the woman, 50% for a man. So we are looking at either joint or co-ownership. But at the moment, of course, we still have only that provision which I have told you. This is something that we should. So we also need to look at providing for the widows and orphans to inherit family land. Of course, under the customary land tenure system, this one, they have their own structure within which they protect widows and orphans to inheritance. But when we went deeper into some customs, when you're more than one wife and one is cohabiting, another one is married, then all the other the customs will protect the married one, not the one cohabiting. So when the man dies, and for you were cohabiting, even when you have 5 or how many children, the children are then termed illegitimate. So their share and the share of the woman who was cohabiting is not equal. So, of course, this one will evoke a lot of issues with married women who will also say, I don't want the one cohabiting to benefit. And churches, you see. So, but then how do we protect if you are somebody with 5 children and you are cohabiting? How do we protect such rights of such a person? Also, mainstreaming gender into overall development. Now, we are also looking at amendment of key legislation related to land. We have the Registration of Titles Act, which we are trying to amend. Maybe we are going to ask for your contribution. The Land Amendment Act, the Surveyors Act. You know, survey is the #1 most crucial thing. It is what makes you know which demarcation is my land. So if you are two in a marriage with one man under customary, and survey is not, the survey law is not very protective, then they can survey the land as one, and in future it becomes a problem. We are trying to amend this to ensure that the women and the vulnerable groups are provided for in aspect to their land rights. We are also dealing with computerization of land registry and land information. This will help us to collect data. We have a land information system that is now capturing all the data of land registration. And of course, when we decentralize, it will also help women who are a little bit in rural areas, who maybe have their own land, they have inherited from their fathers, they have inherited from maybe the clan, to also register. Because we have realized under some customs or even some places, these days, parents are leaving even customary land and dividing to all the family members, including their girl children. But if you don't register your interest as a girl child, you never know what will happen in future. So what we are doing is we are trying to decentralize registration process so that we can encourage the women to register their interests. And this is very important, even for you educated women. It's better you register your land. Most of you own land with sales agreements. I have sat in that office and I have seen people come with a sales agreement which is forged, and for you, you die, you had a sales agreement, your brother or a male person will have a forged agreement and come and register that land. And the children that you thought you were protecting without a land title, you would have worked for nothing. So I also want to encourage most of you, you don't have land title. You have land and property without title. Some of you have bought land up country, you don't have title. It is very important that you have that title and you will it, because The problem also in this patriarchal society, if you don't will your land and something happens to you, it will be at the discretion of your male relatives to redistribute, and they will be the first to put it to themselves. I have seen this. They put it to themselves and say, I'm administering on behalf of my sister's children. And it is at their mercy. For you, you are no longer there. So I want to touch a little bit, because of time, on the issue of the proposed land amendment. I didn't know whether the one I've enumerated are the ones you wanted me to comment on, whether you want me to comment on the proposed land amendment on both. Okay. Now, on the proposed amendment of Article 26(2) of the 1995 Constitution, let me start by saying majority of people have misunderstood this amendment. They feel that the amendment is bringing compulsory acquisition for the first time. No. Currently, under Article 26(2) of the Constitution, there's already a provision made for compulsory land acquisition by government for delivering public infrastructure. That article, which provides for compulsory acquisition of land, only gives condition. That condition is that government will acquire land compulsorily for public goods, construction of roads and dams, construction of facilities like oil refineries, oil production, pipelines, waste facility, the power grids for extension of electricity, mineral exploration, public health and defense, and other public infrastructure. Those are the conditions of compulsory acquisition, not for private investment. I have heard some people confuse to say that government's amendment is for private investors. No. This already is in the current Article 26. The current Article 26 also talks about, before acquiring this land compulsorily, there must be fair, prompt, and adequate compensation. Now, and that prior payment of compensation be done before taking possession of the land. Those are the conditions under the current law, and those conditions are not going to change. Now, what is changing in the proposal? The proposal is to insert subclause 3 in the Constitution, Article 26, subclause 3 and 4. And this subclause will read, where the parties are unable to agree on the fair and adequate compensation payable, the government shall deposit in court or with any relevant authority the value of the property as evaluated by the chief government valuer, and the government shall take possession of the property pending determination by the court or other competent authority of the disputed amount of compensation. So, in other words, the proposal is not talking about fair or prompt or adequate. It's talking about where there is contestation on what constitutes fair amount, what happens? Should there be a standstill, or should the amount that has been, because under the law, government can only pay what has been determined by the chief government valuer. That is why the proposal is saying, when the chief government valuer comes with a value, and you, the property owner or the land owner, you reject that amount, that it is not fair and adequate, then this proposal is coming in to address that stalemate, which is saying then government will either pay you if you accept that you are paid and work continues, and you claim we negotiate, or you claim the other contested value through court, or government deposit your amount in court or other competent authority, and this competent authority shall be defined by Parliament. So this proposal is only where someone has rejected a value. It has nothing to do with the process of compulsory acquisition. The process of compulsory acquisition is clearly stated under section 2 to 13 of the Land Acquisition Act, which talks about all the processes that a chief government valuer goes through to determine a fair and adequate amount. And this fair and adequate amount is not only determined by the chief government valuer. Each of the district is supposed to come with their market value of a compensatable value on surface, on land surface. So even if I wanted to give you more money for your crops, if your district tells me that in Iganga you are going to compensate one tree at 200, my hands are tied, because the law says it is the district land board to determine that value. So the reason why we are saying let work continues is because on many occasions most landowners contest the value that has been determined by the district land board, which is outside our rhythm. It is only the district land board that sits to review. So if we are to wait for the district land board to review, and maybe for them they are insisting that that is the amount that they know is market value of that district, then government is compelled to pay that amount. For us, we only determine the value of land, not what is on surface. And in most cases, our value are not rejected. Most value are rejected based on compensation value from the district land board. That's why we are saying there are so many projects that are pending, worth $27 billion US, because people have said, I disagree with the value. And the current law says, when somebody says, I disagree with the value, you cannot continue to do that work. You must stop until you have agreed with the person, whether it will take 10 years or 5 years. If it's a public good, it is not what I am using as an individual. It is a road that is to be accessed. It's a hospital, and you are one person versus majority. Why can't you allow government work to continue? Because even if you don't allow, that land will still be compulsorily acquired, and that's where I want people to understand. Once a land or property has been declared for compulsory acquisition, you have no option. You have to vacate that land, because the law says you can acquire compulsorily for A, B, C, D. If government says road is passing here, you now no longer have, the only rights you have is for fair, adequate, and prompt compensation. And now the proposal we are making is to add, where you are contesting that adequate compensation, what happens? Allow us to continue with work, get what has been evaluated, and then we can negotiate as work continues, or we can sort it through court. But when I have paid you, and the second sub-clause is saying that when I deposit money as government, that deposit will be deemed to constitute prior, prompt and prior compensation until court has overturned it. So that is the proposal. So I want to thank you for being here, and I hope to hear more of the discussion and the interaction. Thank you very much.
Give the Honourable Minister another round of applause. And you have ended at a point where saying it should be fair, adequate, and prompt compensation. I think those words are beautiful. She has a skill sometimes of turning very complex situations in a simple way. And sometimes when you think it is doom and gloom, she says, no, it's not like that. The laws are actually on our side. We can do much better. If only on paper we can be as good in action, then maybe we wouldn't be having problems as a country. Because we seem to be good on paper, we seem to be good in our constitutions, and yes, even when you have met the cultural leaders, probably they're also promising you to be good. But then they have to walk the talk. And let it be fair, let it be adequate, let it be prompt. And compulsory, it's compulsory. It's not negotiable. So you cannot debate about it. Thank you very much. I suppose you'll be able to listen to the other panelists so that after that maybe there will be a question for you or two to engage them. So allow me to invite Agnes Kirabo to take us through land use in the context of agricultural production and productivity and the growing urbanization. Welcome with me, Agnes Kirabo, with a round of applause.
Thank you, moderator. I wish to congratulate you, the only man who has spoken amidst women. An extension of our day, the Women's Day. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the several clarifications that you have given. I'm going to stick to just a few things, and coming from the food and agriculture background, the issue of land use is at my heart. I'm aware, Honorable Minister, that there is the Physical Planning Act 2010 that declared the rest of Uganda a planning zone. But I doubt whether Ugandans have been able to have a feeling that there is actually planning that is going on in as far as land is concerned. And in my opinion, if this Physical Planning Act and the regulations that will be developed therein are popularized, then you will not labor with reviewing the Constitution and these compulsory acquisitions that were being discussed and diverting, because people will be knowing which is planned to be where. But the way business is being conducted in this country, actually you can hardly tell people. And that is why perhaps people become suspicious, listening that the entire country was declared a planning zone, but decisions are being made in a manner that there is no planning that was actually being done. When you talk to our parents of a good age, they'll tell you that we knew government plans, we knew where a road was envisaged to be, and so on and so forth. Today, things are happening just like it happened yesterday. So I'm coming from that background with concern that you're aware, Honorable Minister, according to UBO's statistical abstract of 2015, the rate at which land that is available for agricultural production is reducing. And according to that abstract, from 2005 to 2010, the land available for agricultural production in 2005 was at a rate of 99,703 plus square kilometers available. And by 2010, that one had reduced to 91.15 thousand square kilometers. We cannot separate the issues of hunger, food insecurity, and land use planning, which is within your jurisdiction or the jurisdiction of Ministry of Lands. The debate on land should not be done as if land acquisition, land tenure security is an end in itself. We are talking about these issues of security for women to produce food, and we are looking at land as an enabler. And therefore, the facilitation to making land available for food production, for production from which both men and women derive a livelihood under security, I think is much more than the discussion that can be done otherwise. Because when we treat it that way, then we are all going to take collective and sensitive decisions because we are interested in the products that are produced from land. But otherwise, that shrinking, coupled with a 3.5% urbanization rate that I think Uganda is leading in two significant rates that are critical for the sector that you're governing. 3.5 urbanization growth rate, I think one of the highest. Everyone runs to the urban center. And the urban centers, despite the Planning Act, they seem not to be planned. And we see estates being put up where women had grown their beans, they had grown the potatoes, under the circumstances that the professor have discussed. So at the end of the day, we are all victims, like we have been victims as a country, looking for 50 so billions to save this country from hunger. So, as a Ugandan, Honorable, I'm interested also in knowing where are the land use maps for this country. As we are talking about the reviews of all of these instruments, there are those instruments that are never talked about, like the land use maps. To know how we are planning our land and how we are planning to use our land and where agriculture is being planned to take place. Because, like it or not, whether industrialization in hair weaves, I think that one is stopping industrialization here, all in what, food and agriculture is going to remain central in this country. And therefore, these women that we see at the countryside need that security that they will they will till the land and produce the food and be able to make decisions over that food. And at the end of the day, the economics of the country are stable. Honorable Minister, you talked about the issues of the Surveyors Act. Actually, the gist of the matter is not whether the surveyor will survey my land as part of my husband's land if he was there, or something. The issue with the surveying is the fact that you privatized survey costs. That even men and women who would have loved to survey their land, it is not affordable. This is where we are doing privatization in the country without regulation. This service needs to be regulated, and if we cannot regulate it like we are not able to regulate on a number of things, then it must be reviewed and taken back. It is what that is making land registration very expensive. So many women, widows, and those that are in here and elsewhere you are talking about, who are owning land by sales agreement, they cannot afford the survey costs. You cannot predetermine. You don't know how much it is. You don't know. At the end of the day, people end up losing money. The second last issue, losing hope and interest in registering land. The second last thing that I needed to talk about in the context of agriculture and women's land rights is, Honorable Minister, the capacity of your land administration institutions at the local level. You may or may not be aware that in some areas, the area land committees you're talking about have long time since their tenure expired, and nobody is concerned. Actually, some of them don't even know that they are supposed to reign for 3 years, and then their tenure be reviewed, or a new committee is being elected. The district land boards, some of them have become like LC1s in some districts. And nobody is interested because these institutions, Honorable Minister, are not financed at the same time. There's a very big assumption that their facilitation is supposed to come from the local government revenue, which you're pretty aware that most local governments are limping. Actually, in the context of financing, we are having more of centralization and decentralization. There is no revenue down there. But the good news, Honorable Minister, is that land administration institutions at the local level have a capacity to generate own revenue. But they are prohibited from spending at source. I will not mention one of the MZOs that I visited physically with another team, and the person heading that MZO had to dip his hand in the pocket to find money to slash the compound because he needed to put a face. So they are very weak in terms of capacity, are financial, but in many of them even technical, such that even when people stretch to go and use those administration institutions, they can hardly offer a service. Can we rethink on how best these land administration institutions at the local level, where majority of the people are financed? Aware, Honorable Minister, that I don't even recall the percentage that the land sector got and is being proposed to get in the next financial year. I just wanted to pick from you, Honorable Minister, lastly, you talked about Buganda Land Board and the registration that they are doing now. I needed to get it clearly from you, Honorable Minister. Has the jurisdiction of this institution being extended beyond Kabaka's land to include the rest of Milo land in Buganda? Because that one has implications. The people, the bona fide occupants that are occupying land of other private owners, that to the best of my knowledge until you spoke, that land is not within the jurisdictions of the Buganda Land Board. I'm yet to learn from you whether it is the Buganda Land Board that is supposed to issue and register them and issue a certificate of occupancy. As I conclude, Honorable Minister, the land use plans and land use maps, if we do not have them, if there is no future that you can give this debate, how soon they are going to be reviewed to reflect the development objectives and goals of this country, then this country is bound to be more hungry than it has experienced this year. I submit.
Thank you very much. Give her another round of applause. Thank you. You can clearly see there is a person who has a wealth of experience on agricultural production and productivity and the growing urbanization in Uganda. And you've raised some questions, and I think it was wise that the minister stayed, even though I'm sure quite a number of engagements are waiting her somewhere else. Let me now call upon our next presenter, who is going to be Jennifer Achaloi, Program Coordinator, Action Aid Uganda, to give us her presentation. We shall use maybe 10 minutes for the two presenters, and then we'll also get some few questions from you so that the minister can answer. But also, if you have a question for the presenters or information that you want to bring forward for the benefit of this debate to help Uganda add value on our land question issue, it is welcome. Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank the Honorable Minister for giving us that elaborate, good legal framework that we have as a country. Indeed, I think the gaps are fewer in terms of the legal protection that is offered to women in terms of having access to land or property rights. The greatest challenge perhaps is in the implementation of the laws that we have as a country. And I was invited to speak about the practical solutions, sharing our experiences that we have had as Action Aid in working in this sector, access to land for women. Whereas we have the good constitutional provisions, Article 26, the Land Act, all the laws that we have that protect women's rights. One of those things that is really missing, that we have found as a gap, is awareness among our population. Now, we work with extremely poor people, and when you talk of extremely poor people, women are normally at the bottom of that pyramid. So our work has centered so much on increasing awareness on land rights, and not just access to land. Our work has gone to control and ownership of land. Ladies and gentlemen, access to land is a problem, yes, but the magnitude of problems that women are facing is ownership and control. A woman can go to her father's home or in the husband's home and ask for a piece of land to utilize. That can be given. But control and ownership is one that will not be given. If a woman has a problem and she needs to get a loan, use that piece of land as collateral, that is where you will see the real problem. But for her to put there beans, 1 season, 2 seasons, that can be granted. But when it comes to control, when it comes to ownership, that is a real problem. And I would implore us, to put our energies there, even for the ministry, to put our energies there. Because without ownership, without control, then you cannot make so many decisions on that piece of land. You may not be able to construct, you may not be able to do long-term plans that you have. So that is a real challenge, and we have tried as an organization to work to sensitize the structures that we have. The other real challenge that the women are facing is the lack of economic empowerment, the poverty that women are facing. That when they are faced with an eviction, with a land grab, to access the courts of law, it is quite challenging for a rural woman. So sometimes the women will resign and, you just see your land being taken away because you cannot afford the legal services. That's why in some of the instances we have worked with the local council 3s, we have had to facilitate their sitting, we have had to provide stationery, but we are also a bit selfish that we tell them this is only to hear women's land-related issues. If 2 men fought in a bar, no, we cannot facilitate this. So that is a real challenge for the rural woman. The Minister, you also mentioned that provision in the Land Act where a man cannot deal in land, or a spouse, without gaining consent from the other party, which is very good within the law. But like I was told to share practical experiences, these are some of the scenarios we have come across. A man has 4 wives. He's going to sell his only 2 acres of land. 3 wives say yes, sell. 1 says no, we have to keep this land for our children. I don't know whether we should amend the law, what we can do to ensure that consent from all wives is obtained. Because we had one woman who was chased from her home because she's the only one who said no. The other 3 said yes. And even when we worked with her, and eventually the man was not able to sell. Actually, he had sold, but they managed to retrieve the land and take back the money to the person who had bought. The woman remained a stranger in her own home. The unpeaceful wife who is causing trouble in this home. So our traditional mechanisms are also one of our greatest challenges for women to access land, to own land, to enjoy the benefits that they would have derived from land. And that is one of those that we need to tackle. Of course, as an institution, as CSOs, we always work with these women, train them, build their capacity, empower them, advocate with them. But when a woman goes back to her home, she meets these challenges. When the community is looking at you as you're the anti-development wife, you know, it becomes a real challenge. Now, we have also preferred, in some instances, to use alternative dispute resolution other than going to court. Why? I already mentioned poverty. Court processes are extremely laborious, they are expensive, they take time, they drain you. Earlier on, Josephine mentioned the case of the Kaweri case in Mubende, where thousands were evicted from Milo land. Now, those people have been in court for more than 10 years. Their children have grown. Those who have acquired plots in whichever parts of Mubende are there. And this January, they first had a ruling in their favor in 2014. Then the company appealed. The matter is in court. It has not yet been decided upon. But you know, because of the hopelessness of the community, they decided, give us what you can give us. Over 15 years in court. So I want to request the ministry, just like we have expeditious hearings in electoral matters, election petitions, where a court can suspend all activities before it until that matter is disposed of. Can we also have the same for land? Honorable Minister, you'll agree with me that the scale of evictions, of land dispossession in the country is alarming. I don't want to sound alarmist, but every day when you watch news, you see land evictions. There is a community in Apache that I visited, Chawente, to be specific. You come from the region, Adograo. These guys were given 2 days notice, for crying out loud. 2 days notice in August 2016. Now August is a month for harvesting. They had simsim in the garden, they had maize, they had beans. They left everything. They burnt their houses, they destroyed crops. These are women. Every eviction that takes place in this country, it is a woman that is suffering the most. The man can get 1 room in town, but a woman has 7 children, 8 children. Where will she go? Where will she go? 2 days notice. And when you reach there, you find the simsim. Of course, it had to germinate, you know, it was all a waste. They ran with nothing. And all the evictions we have witnessed have been so violent. I don't know who is taking stock of the human rights violations during evictions, but it is so bad. My request to the ministry is, as we have all these proposals coming up for compulsory land acquisition, people disagreeing with the district land board rates, your ministry supervises the land board. Can't they review their rates? Must we use rates for over 10 years? The value of land keeps going up. So the district must also keep revaluing the rates that they are using. Otherwise, I don't think in all circumstances people are disagreeing just for the sake of disagreeing. They might have some genuine reasons. So, as I conclude, the other experience that I would want to share is that whenever we deal with women who have faced violations, you have to look at the whole spectrum. Land and violence, domestic violence, violence against women cannot be separated. We have women protection centers. A number of cases that come to the protection centers are land related. So when we're talking about protection for women, we cannot separate it from land, because any dispute, like other people have said, men have owned land. You know, when they read the law, they say, this is a man's land over my dead body. So even a mere suggestion over land ends up in domestic violence. So as we address all the lacunas, all the loopholes, let us not separate the two. They pretty much go hand in hand. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. You're watching a live debate linking women's land rights to women's economic empowerment in the changing world of work. We are coming to you live from the National Museum, and you can follow the debate at hashtag #LandDebateUG, or follow us at NTV Uganda. That's our Twitter handle. And Jennifer talked about, let us not confuse two things: access to land and ownership of the same. And I've been thinking about access to land sometimes, Jennifer. It can be given in a way which is in a selfish manner, because they want you to produce for them. But maybe if you try to dig deep, you'll find that even after you've produced, probably you don't have ownership of the produce. You may find that they only want you to produce, and after that, you don't have say over your produce. And you have also raised so many questions to the Honorable Minister, and I saw her taking note. So even you at home who's following us, or wherever you are, you can follow the debate, you can send your questions, or keep watching this live transmission. You can learn a thing or two for the betterment of understanding Uganda's land question. So let me call the last presenter, and that's going to be Rose Atim Opita, the head of programs at OXFAM. Rose.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, Honorable Minister, my co-presenters and participants. Mine will be just in addition to what the rest of the presenters have added. Is not very far from where we sit in OXFAM, and our experience or practical experience to date. OXFAM largely work with other organizations to strengthen women access, control, and ownership of land. And we've had a track record in issues of land in this country, but a lot of the issues have been taken on board by my colleagues. The issue that I want to emphasize and bring to the attention of the Honorable Minister is the issue around fast-tracking the implementation of the land policy. I think the others have talked about it. I think it is time that we ensure that we fast-track that, because I think that will enable us go very far as resolving most of these issues. You talked about awareness, and my colleague from ActionAid also talked about awareness. And you focus so much on the rural women, and actually that is our focus as an organization and our partners. But I must tell you that the middle class women are equally unaware. So I think the issue of land rights and the issues of land administration and structure needs to be real focus for the government. I sat in one of the meetings 2 weeks ago, and a commissioner from land was saying that civil society should help create that awareness. So I was sitting with somebody and I said, is that actually the role of civil society, or is it a primary role of government? I think government need to step up on that to create this awareness. If you want the land the land policy implementation to be fastened, you need to create awareness in terms of knowledge. First of all, that women need to know that they have equal rights. but also that the cultural institutions need to know the rights for women to learn, and then the administration and the structures and the referral. I think very few people, even among us here, if we pose a question, probably you'll get 10% that will clearly explain to you. So I think it's an issue that government needs to look into. The other thing, the other submission have been made, you realize that the land resolution at times are given to the local courts or the cultural courts. How much are they well versed with handling these cases? That is one of the areas that I think also government need to focus, because if we are leaving the land resolution cases to a traditional leader who is, the custody of saying that the boy child is more, is the one who should own land as opposed to the girl child, how fair will this traditional or cultural leader make a fair judgment that the girl child is equally, entitled to the land, or the woman that they're about to chase out there is equally entitled to the land? So I think for me that is critical. The other thing that I also want to bring to your attention is the enforcement mechanism of the court cases. I think this has also brought a bit of roadblocks in terms of women access and control to land, because they can rule in the case that, Rosa team needs to take on that land. But you'll find somebody bigger or somebody else will come and ensure that this court case is not implemented. Who is following this to ensure that, the court mechanisms are followed and the implementation to ensure that justice is done to everybody? I think for me that is very critical. Also, the other thing is that still is a big challenge is, I've touched a bit about it, the issues around conflict resolution and the dispute system. I think I've already touched on that in terms of how we strengthen that, because I believe that government can, work with together with the CHASA institution. I've talked about 2 recommendations in terms of the implementations, but also I think we need some monitor. We need land monitor with annual state of land governance report. I have not had this in government. I have not had this anywhere in Uganda. Can we be getting this regular update to tell us where we are in terms of implementation, in terms of, fast tracking some of these things? Can we create platforms, whether locally or, otherwise, where we can be sharing information around these land-related issues, and feedback mechanisms as well, as far as the land issues are concerned. So for me, those are the few areas that I think government needs to look into, and also working together with the other stakeholders to ensure that probably the issues of women land rights and rights to everyone to own, access and control land in this country is fast-tracked. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rosa team there, and she has also burrowed into our cultural institutions. Looking at some of those negativity that could be embedded in our cultural institutions. I don't know how we can get them out, the negative aspects, but if that's what needs to be done, maybe step by step, that should also be looked into. Those were the presenters, and those were their submissions. I'm going to ask you to maybe engage them, but be very precise and concise, because we only have 30 minutes maximum. And remember, the Honorable Minister has many questions to respond to. But if you allow me, let me prompt Winfred Ngabwiri from the Executive Director Global Rights Alert to at least, yes, and then also I'll ask Maggie Atim. Can I have a microphone given to Winfred? The issues of land, somebody was asking, how can it be that this country 100 years ago, when the former British Prime Minister came here and he was dazzled by the beauty of this country, and he called it the Pearl of Africa, and we have almost 50% of East Africa's arable land here, and we almost have more than 50% of the fresh water here, and we can still go hungry. We have 52% of the population engaged in agriculture, and we are not, the biggest majority of our population is contributing less to the GDP. How can we get out of this, Winfred?
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the remarks that you gave, and also for the work that you have been doing. My name is Winfred Ngabirwe, as they introduced me, and I work with Global Rights Alert. We work mainly in areas of oil, gas, and minerals, and I've seen you recently in the oil region, cancelling some titles and making really strong statements. But I want to really emphasize that what a woman from the oil region wants is to be sure that she can put food on the table. We have constitution, we have policies, but these documents largely remain in Kampala and they remain on paper. During the acquisition of land for the refinery, for example, very many women were disgruntled because they were never part of the process from the word go. So they never negotiated, they never understood how values were arrived at. Even when they had issues with the values that were attached to their crops, men received the money for crops, for cassava, for beans, for maize, and they ran away with that. When they were deciding on whether to get cash compensation or land for land compensation, the women were never at the table until civil society went back and engaged and said, you have to have this discussion and choose what do you want as a family. Do you want cash or do you want land for land? And then the numbers for people who wanted land for land increased from 27 to about 90 something, because women had come in and they had said, I would prefer that I have another piece of land than my husband receiving money, because the husbands were actually running away with money, and we had to use the police to recall men and say, come back, this is your obligation, this is ABC. And for me, I really worry because I never saw Minister of Lands anywhere in that process. I always saw Minister of Energy talking about values. I saw Minister of Energy talking about surveying. I saw Minister of Energy, handling almost everything, and the consultant. And I asked myself, this is a land issue. Where is the land board? Where are the valuers? Where is Minister of Energy, of Lands to guide people, men and women? Because if they had that guidance, we wouldn't be seeing what we saw. We are now in preparation for acquiring land for the oil pipeline. We do not want to see the same things again. Instead of government sitting here and planning on how to deal with victims, we need to see the ministry coming to avoid having victims, majority of whom are going to be women. We cannot talk about development, middle income, when a woman is seeing government taking away. When you talk about the upcoming amendment, I really wouldn't want to go into that, but I want you to think about the social and safety nets that you're putting, that a woman will still do her work, she will put food at the table, she will pay school fees, she will have medical care because she has land that is not being taken away in the name of development. We have seen in Kampala very many pieces of land have been taken away in the name of development. We have not seen value for that. So we worry that there are many things that we need to discuss, and we want assurance from you that this is going to be done. You were at Rwamtonga in Hoima, where people were evicted because of a company that wanted to put an oil waste treatment plant. It's pathetic. This week, people went back to some piece of land, despite the case being in court. That could cause a problem. Children have died. Women cannot provide for their families. Men cannot provide for their families. It's a pathetic situation. It needs to be resolved.
Okay. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I could meanwhile be switching off the microphone so it doesn't create an echo. In the interest of time, you will maybe take a minute or less, so that at least many people can contribute. But I also understand you are giving us very vital information. By the way, in Kibale, Honorable Minister, in Kabale, where they are supposed to build a refinery, I met a woman who got 120 million shillings, an old woman, and she was asking, is this enough to maybe a border? You can imagine somebody had not been what? It's sensitized enough. All she wanted in her life was a border, and yet there she has 120 million. And I don't know what they did. But also there was a lady who was reunited with the husband, because they had to look for the husband to sign the papers. So she was like, thank you, refinery, you brought me back my money. Okay. It will be better if you make your contribution while standing, so the camera can be able to pick you. Thank you very much. Tell us your name, where you're from, and make it very precise, madam.
My name is Margaret Atim.
Yes.
I'm from FIDA, Uganda. I just want to add my voice to a few of the issues that have already been raised, especially in relation to acquisition. We do appreciate that there's a policy in place for acquisition. However, the problem comes in turnaround time for payment. For example, many of the clients we handle, yes, they have agreed to the compensation, but it takes years before they can receive this amount of money. And by the time it comes through, the value is not commensurate. So what would the ministry be doing about that? I also would like to talk about the issue of sensitization. Yes, it has been left to civil society. I would like to agree with the panelists that this is primarily government, the role of government, but also what level of sensitization, what kind of sensitization are we taking to the community? We want to see more of unengendered sort of sensitization. Our community needs to learn the dynamics of gender, and why do we actually talk about access to land for women, and how does that tie into the broader perspectives, for example, in terms of economic development. Then I would also want to very quickly talk about the category of women who are often forgotten on issues of property issues. Over 5,000 clients that we handle are cohabitees. These are cohabitees. Their rights are actually not protected, because most of the laws we have protect the married women and those in formal relationships. Now, when we are talking about rights of women, protecting, and remember that every time we are protecting women, there are about 6 children behind each woman. So if a woman has been in a cohabitee relationship, and at the end of such relationship, there is no law in place that is speaking to her rights to that land, how are we going to ensure that these women are actually protected? This issue has been tabled before in the Marriage and Divorce Bill, which actually went silent. So our interest from the ministry is, what are we doing to address this category of people? Because it's not a trend we can shut our eyes to.
Thank you very much. Okay, one at a time and very briefly. It seems you came to here with your bag of questions, but no bag of solutions, and every word is a question. Can you also suggest some solutions from you? Because if we are going to overload them with questions, government, probably we're not being fair. Because even us, we can critically think of some ways. It could be a question, but could also follow it with a suggestion. Follow the question with maybe some suggestion from yourself. If you don't have, it's only a question, okay, shoot it.
Esther Najemba from Rubaga Women Volunteers Initiative. I'm the chairperson. Honorable, you said that you divide the land with the family where the government has bought land. But after dividing that land with one woman who has children, that's a family. What about if he gets another woman and produces other children? How are you protecting them? Secondly, it is you people up there in those offices who have not sensitized the people. 95 of the laws, they are there, but you have not come down to sensitize these down people. So I'm advising, please, you people sit down and put a team there, goes to media to sensitize people of the laws, because they are there. Thirdly and lastly, I think let this one be put in law. If a man has been with that woman more than 5 years, they have children, automatically has to share that thing. Secondly, if a man produces only girls, Mind you, culture side, they have to look a boy from the brother or the extended family. And if that boy heirs to that man, the boy will become a problem to these girls. So you people put there a law which helps those children who are born only girls. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, one question, one person, not two. And I'm going to take only 5 more. We just have a few minutes remaining, but we have so many questions to the minister. Let us use the time creatively. Yes, sir.
Wow, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. All the panelists have been exemplary. The minister has been to the point. What I'm saying, I'm called Emmanuel Osira. I'm from the Legal Fraternity. And precisely, I'm from Tororo. But what I'm saying is that these kind of workshops need to be distributed out, up country. Because even people who are educated, people who have done law, whatever they have done, when people going to court. We are
broadcasting this throughout Uganda, and yes. Ugandans are following us in diaspora. Those are streaming live.
Yes.
So partly that is so.
Yes, people go to court even with, they don't know what they are supposed to do in court. So they go to court and get embarrassed. I thank God for what I have learned today. It's been wonderful. God bless all of you.
Thank you. From Tororo there. Let us. We have a member of parliament. We also have women who are working in the market here within. Express yourself in Luganda if you may. We will try to translate that as well.
Honorable Minister Mama, nadala katinga fa abakyala abawansi mama. Ogenda n'otuuka n'ogula ka politiko omukyala n'ogamba gwe naakuumira abaana bange gwe taata gwe maama. Naye n'otuuka nti nannyini ttaka agenda tunda ettaka kyali tuliko wadde no mu Lusanja Kinyana Mpindu kuva wano ku parliament. Ne we baatuuka nannyini ttaka bwe yajja n'agamba nti ettaka lyange nditwala kapoto kaguze $3 million otaddemu obuzigo bwo. Mu butuufu baatuuka otuwa ssente baatuwanga $3 naye nga tewali muntu yenna agenda kutuyamba ffe nga abawansi okujja ogamba nti bannange ennyumba gyazimbyemu mu mutaase kuba abamu ffe twetwalanga nayo ssebo tongoba naye nnyamba nzizawa n'abaana bange ngenda bakuumirawa ngenda kusimba $3 tolina wootandikira nti nzirukidde waako ero si bwona ogenda nti bannange naffe omusajja nannyini ttaka yazze mugenda kukola mutya abasobola mugende mangu bw'ogaana ogenda viiramu awo. Kati maama nze ng'omukyala owa wansi ndi mu katale era nze neebaza n'okwebaza debate eno okubeerawo. Nze ng'omukyala owa wansi sirina kyentegeera. Njagenda wa chairman yantegeera buli kaseera. Chairman nagula mwanteekerako omukono nkoze ntya nzirukidde wa ntandikidde wa mu kooti ne bw'ono ngamba nti genda ku Buganda Road simanyi kooti ya Buganda Road bweri. Toge mazima. Genda ku Land Board bwe tudda ku bino ebya Buganda Land Board obufaananyi bagamba batukube. Ogenda osanga ekibanja kiri mu kyalo kitaawo yafa. Ne bakugamba nti mulina okwekubisa obufaananyi obukakasa nti ettaka eryo libaddidde. Kuba taata wammwe yava omusika yagenda okgenda bamukuba obufaananyi. Ng'omwana omuwala bw'obanga wagabana tokyalina omusika yagenda dda bamukubadde obufaananyi. Bwe tutuuka ku ttaka nti oba nti bannayinzadde abaana bange omusajja abandekedde kambere n'abaana bange ku ttaka wali tebakukkiriza kutunda gwe omwana omuwala guza mwannyoko mwannyinaze sente zanansaba sizirina nze ne bwe mba nvudde mu nsi omwana wange agenda kuganyulwawa. Kati bannange etteeka eryo mulitunulemu nnyo eyo waggulu era emisomo gino mugyongere ne wansi ddala wansi kuba singa tewaliwo ebibiina bino birwaniriza ddembe ffe tetwali bitegedde.
Okay, my Luganda has still severe disability, but I can hear everything she was saying. And as a girl child in Uganda or anywhere else in Uganda, you cannot inherit the land. If you inherit, they can only give it to the boy, but also if they give it to your brother, you are not supposed to leave that land or give it to your children. Or if you buy, you don't have a sales agreement, and maybe you've been a squatter and somebody comes, they don't give you time and they chase you. So a woman in this kind of context is faced with so many hurdles. You need to look into that at a different prism because they are pressed so negatively as far as they are concerned. And that cuts across, whether in Busoga or in Toro or even here in Buganda.
Thank you very much. My name is Rosemary Lukola, and I come from Family Support Uganda, and I'm very glad to be here this afternoon. And I just want to talk about the issue of awareness. Just like the lady before said, when you get into this problem and you have to go to court, it's the last thing you want to go to. Then you are forced to go to court, and court is a long story. Those who have been there know. And I want to agree with the recommendation that the third speaker talked about, expediting those land cases the way we handle the electoral cases. Otherwise, people are at the mercy of nobody. Nobody cares about us. We are there, and anything happens, and nobody cares. We've lost the sense of community, and something needs to be done as soon as yesterday. Otherwise, we have no country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm taking two more, one at the back, at the extreme back, and one at the extreme in front. Extreme back end, if there's I can see a hand there, and then in front, and that will be it.
Thank you very much, the moderator, and thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My name is Sewingo Christopher. I work here at the Uganda Museum and a student at Makerere University. We talk of awareness. I do believe, yes, we have it on TV live, but this is a working day. People are in offices, they're not at home, they don't access internet at home, that maybe they can replay it on YouTube. So I'm not content with this kind of thing concentrating on only media, because even people in the villages, you'll find the biggest percentage, they don't have TVs, they don't have radios, but we can use community dialogues where we can engage people, and we also take legislative people like one of the gentlemen said here, is coming from the legal framework, people who are working the legal framework. So we can take people of such kind of caliber to try to talk to the people and explain what these laws mean and how can they use them to execute the land management issue in those villages. And apart from that, many of the challenges we are getting, everything is corruption, everything is corrupted, everything everywhere, especially from maybe some of the officials who are not meant to be corrupting these issues. That's why we lose very many people, we lose lives of people. So what could be the measure of getting the community members on board to work out that issue of corruption? Because even if we talk about corruption and we go to court, it's the same thing we will find there.
Thank you very much. You are saying such debates should be taken to rural Uganda or deep to the villages. I think your point is taken, and that corruption should be addressed. I said you bring the microphone at the front, and that's why we're going to stop it there. Then the minister will respond.
Thank you very much. My name is Jane Ochaya Irama, and I'd just like to speak to two issues. The first issue is on land acquisition. Now, I've been involved in a process on behalf of UWONET where we've been looking at natural resource governance from a gender perspective. And we've looked at the issue of women's land rights in the communities where oil and gas is being explored. And one of the issues that we found was that in terms of land acquisition, the communities are actually being deterred from opting for land compensation. And this is being done in three ways. First of all, non-involvement of the women, because many of the women actually prefer land compensation. The second strategy that is being used is the delay in payment. Some people stay for up to 3 years without payment. Then the third strategy which is used is that they are told that the land that they will be given is in Karamoja, which many people see as a very hostile environment. And when they're told you're going to receive land in Karamoja, they say, no, 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 we don't want it. So there's a deliberate strategy to ensure that people do not opt for land compensation.
Thank you very much. Let me just make one exception and get another member.
Can I make another point?
Okay.
Another point very quickly about the Kaweri issue. And to me, it's a very important issue because in 2002, I was the policy coordinator of ActionAid when this case started. And what happened was that we received a letter from the RDC of Mubende, and he said, so many people have been evicted from land and they need relief. But when we went to that community, they told us, we don't want relief. What we want is our land back. And that is how the case started. So we started supporting the community through the court processes. But the case is not as straightforward as it may seem to be. The land ownership is under contestation. We found people on that land who had lived there for 80 years. So it is not a very straightforward case, but it was a case which was a very hot potato. It involved eviction of 4 villages. They were evicted by the army. There were a lot of interests involved, and it was a very hot potato.
How about the Ndorobo Benet community in Kapchorwa? It seems to have been the same question.
Yes.
Okay, let me take maybe one exception, one more from Honorable Kamateka.
Thank you, Patrick. My name is Jova Kamateka, Member of Parliament for Mitoma District, and I chair the Human Rights Committee of Parliament. I'm sure that's why I was invited here. I want to thank UWONET for giving us this opportunity. And I want to thank NTV for creating that time. I want to thank the Honorable Minister. The Minister is new in this ministry. This is a new policy. But Honorable Betty Amongi has been out there trying to explain this policy to us. In fact, when she first aired this policy, it was not even finalized. So some people started bashing her. Why is she getting it out before it is ready? But it was so that we could give in our input. We are saying sensitization, sensitization. This is part of the sensitization. So I want to thank you, Honorable Minister, for all the efforts that you have made in being out there, to go there to inspect the land on the ground and also educate people on this very, very difficult land policy. Of course, we need more sensitization. It would help if you held more radio programs, for example, if you went out and educated the councils, the local councils that deal directly with the land, and also the district land boards. But we know it is a new policy, and you are doing all you can, and we know that with time it will get down there. I want to say that now that we have listened to the minister and we have some knowledge about what this policy is about, let us also take it upon ourselves to go and explain that which we have heard here. These fantastic ladies have very fantastic information on these issues. Let us try and go out there and sensitize people. I wanted to comment on the issue of girl children and our culture. I know how difficult it is for girl children to inherit land, but we need to sensitize the parents. Let me tell you, my father had 2 wives. My mother produced us only girls. We were 6 girls. And at his demise, my father left a will. He divided his land in 2 parts, 2 equal parts. He left the first part with my stepmother, but left it with my half-brother. And for my mother's land, he left it in my names. He said, Kamateka, you will be responsible for this land. You will look after your mother and your sisters. And if we could sensitize our parents, I got married later in life, and I even didn't marry in my home area. Got married in Bunyoro. Later on, because my father had left me this responsibility, I went, and of course I've been looking after my mother and my sisters. I went and stood in Mitoma to represent them. So I have upheld his name in that region. So let us know that girl children are as important as the boys.
So if the boys come from Munyoro, can they inherit that land in Mitoma?
They will not inherit the one in Mitoma. They will inherit their father's land in Bunyoro. Yeah.
So they don't have a share in Mitoma?
No, they don't have a share in Mitoma.
Then you have not really followed your father's legacy.
But no. No, give me a chance here. Give me a chance here. Of course, they are my children, and the land is mine. And the land, although it is my mother's, belongs to all of us 6 sisters. So all our children have a share. Hey, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. The questions have been many, and thank you very much, Honorable, for your contribution. And we can see that many years ago, our parents could do something like that. Why not now?
Yeah.
If it could be done then we can even do it much better in 2017. Honorable Minister, if you could come and respond to some of these questions, and then in 10 minutes we'll be maybe concluding.
Thank you very much. And let me start with the Buganda Land Board. The jurisdiction of Buganda Land Board is Kabaka's land. But in Buganda, I think that is the biggest, one of the biggest Milo land that is in this sub-region. But that one I need to clarify. But still on the private Milos, even the people who have private Milos, I've seen very many of them who are more and more registering all their family members in the Milo title. The land use maps and plans, yes, you correctly stated that the 2010 Physical Planning Act declared the whole country a planning area. We started by phasing. The first phase, we had to start with the Albertine Graben region, which we declared the 25 districts in the Albertine Graben region a planning area. We finished the plan for that 25 districts. We went further to have a pilot for Bulisa as a planning area. And from Bulisa, we went into about 3 growth centers, 1 SECO, and about 4 others, which are a planning area. And in all these planning areas in Bulisa, we are now demarcating where is land for agriculture, where is land for industry, where is land for settlement. In the plan we are having that. Where are the roads going? Where are the markets going to be established? Where are the fishing zone going to be? So that is what we are doing. Of course, because of financial constraint, we cannot do the whole country at a go. But we are also working with Ministry of Agriculture to start land use agricultural planning in the district. And we've started this with Noya and Amoro. Noya and Amoro gives a very good example because these are areas that were empty when people had run away and were in camps. When they started coming back, we now had to have sort of a plan for them. And if you go now to Noya, for example, you will find areas in Noya which are for hotels and tourist sites. You can only put hotels and tourist facility. You'll find areas which are basically for industry, and you'll find areas which are only for agricultural, commercial agricultural production. So we are trying to do this as a pilot and an example for areas that are not so much congested. The land use maps and plan as a planning tool is vital, as you stated. What we are doing in the ministry now is what we are calling geodetic referencing and aerial surveying. We are surveying the whole country aerially. Of course, some places we went like in Amoro, Kumi, and Soroti, and when we were flying, they chased us that we are demarcating their land for sale. So that still it tells you that people are very sentimental about land. But so far we have flown throughout the country. We have produced maps for the whole country. We have geo-referenced, what we call geodetic referencing, and computerized the maps. What we are now going to do is to use the maps that we have captured aerially and computerized to do the planning of the roads and infrastructure, and where the plans already exist to superimpose the cadastral map and put new plans on them. Part of the, if you've seen already, KCCA have started the issue of street naming and house numbering. Those are some of the outcome of what we feel should be example of urban areas. But it cannot be done in a day. It is a phased manner. Regulating cost of surveying, I agree with you. We have already started engaging the surveyors board. The surveyors board are those who register surveyors, and the surveyors have their association, and we're already in contact with them. We have a draft regulation to regulate the cost of surveying, and very soon we are going to come up with the regulation in respect to the costing per acre. How much, if you are in a rural area, should you pay a surveyor? Because this time the people are on their own. Somebody will tell you 1.5 million, someone will tell you 2 million, another 700. So we now want to have that rate, which can be reviewed maybe after every 2 or 3 years. So we are working with the registration board, surveyors registration board, to handle that one. The capacity of the land administration institution. You're very right that the area land boards, the area land committees and the district land boards really lack capacity. But the problem is not the ministry. The problem is also the regulations and the legal issues around how district land boards and the local government land institution are supposed to be managed. The law says they are independent and so on. We supervise them when they flout the rules, the procedures, and when they flout the law. So we are looking at this amendment. I earlier told you we are moving for an amendment of the Land Amendment Act, and we are looking at the land administration institution as one of the core that we need to look at, whether we re-centralize some of the supervision and powers, because also they are doing a lot of things at the local level in the name of being independent that are really flouting the laws, and by the time you've discovered and you try to rectify, sometimes maybe it's too late. Somebody has already put a structure on the land and so on. But yes, it is important that also already we are also on capacity building and awareness. We are working with the parliament, because members of parliament comes from all the constituency. So what we have deliberately decided as a ministry is that we are going to have meetings with all the parliamentary groups, educate them, sensitize them on the land laws, on the issues to do with land eviction, give them the relevant information that will enable them to go and educate their people on the ground. We are also embarking on awareness creation with the RDCs, the LC5s, and the council at LC5 level, such that when they're in funerals and weddings and all that, they will be able to help us, because the human resource required to reach each and everybody cannot be met by the Ministry of Lands. That's why when we encompass the members of parliament, the local leaders, but also I still want to re-echo the fact that you as civil society, we need to move together. When you are also conducting your programs, it's important that you also give the same message. I think the most important issue is now to harmonize the legal framework, harmonize the message, such that when we are talking and you are talking, we are all talking the same language. Land eviction and proposal that the cases be expeditiously heard. I think that's why the land division of the court was created. However, we have over time noted that that division is also working just like the other courts of law. So that proposal of having a time frame of disposing of land cases has been brought to us. We are meeting the judiciary very soon We are starting with meeting the army, meeting the police. On Monday, we are having our meeting with the army and police, because most times people are complaining to our ministry that the eviction are being done by the army and the police, and sometimes done without the court order, and yet eviction under the law is only supposed to be done when there's a court order. So that's why we have started with engaging the police, who are the major institution that should effect eviction, to let them understand that it's important that you rein on your district police officers and all the other officers there to follow the law when it comes to eviction. Because once police doesn't evict or help in eviction, the eviction will not take place. Even if a bailiff goes with the court order, sometimes, by the way, I want to tell you, court orders are being forged. We have confirmed very many court orders that are issued from Nasa Road. This country is sometimes people are too clever. Nasa Road has become London of a certain sort. So there are people who get forged court orders, and they go with it, and it is effected. By the time you realize, it is too late. So those are the gaps we want to actually have a team that encompass police and Ministry of Lands, that's in such a way that before an eviction is done, the district police commander or the police at that place should first call this team, because according to the procedure, even when you get a court order, you just don't walk with the court order. You are supposed to register it at the police headquarters, it is cleared, and you go with it. But sometimes people get court order at noon and at 1 o'clock. The eviction is taking place. But because people do not know this procedure, it is happening. That's why we are saying now we need to tighten the knot to make sure that we handle the issue of the procedure, but also the causes of eviction. Sometimes people will also come and tell you, and really you think it is genuine. There is a cartel also in Kampala and in Buganda, where now people have organized themselves. They go, they search for free land, and they go en masse and look for people to go and settle there, because they know the law says you don't evict without ABCD. So that we have also discovered, that there are people who have organized themselves, they look for where there's free land, when they know it's strategic and they want to grab that land, they look for this group that they have, they ferry them, they go and settle there. When they are not, the law says you can only be protected from being evicted when you're a bona fide or lawful occupant, or a tenant who has settled with the consent of the landlord. So also when you go into some of this, you need to dig deeper. Is it the right cause or not? You need really to cross-check. What I've learned is you need to cross-check a lot with issues to do with the land. Otherwise, sometimes people will tell you beautiful stories when they are actually not genuine. Then District Land Board, renewing compensation rate. Yes, we have sort of left it to the District Land Board, but now we are thinking that we need to put regulation that they should renew every after 2 years. That's what we are thinking, that we will give them a regulation that every after 2 years they should review the compensation rate. Involvement of traditional leaders and cultural leaders, that probably you can involve them and they will continue to favor the boy child against the girl child. I want to state that the Children's Act is very clear on the issue of children. The Children's Act doesn't say it is a girl child or a girl boy. For it, it just puts a percentage that are to be benefited by children. That's all. So I think this particular aspect is catered for, but still involvement of cultural leaders and traditional leaders are vital, because they are custodians of these values. And if you want to change the values, you can change the values by bringing them to understand what the law says, what the Constitution says. So when we engage them, we let them understand their obligation to reform their cultural norms to be in tandem with the Constitution and the law. So this one is the basic parameter of our engagement with the cultural leaders. The alternative dispute resolution, yes, even under the national land policy, you remember the tribunal, the land tribunal, were first sent to judiciary. Then judiciary rejected it, that it was too cumbersome, it was floating their budget. Now, under the new national land policy, we've decided to bring it back, reactivate the functions, and we are in the process of doing this. But at the moment, we are having what we call adjudication committee, land adjudication committee, which is supposed to be at the level of parishes, at the level of sub-county and district. So the land adjudication committee are the ones that are supposed to deal with the resolution, although not many districts have established them yet. Now, women in the oil region, you've articulated a lot of issues around women in the oil region that have become victims, that the issue of sometimes the compensation they would have wanted to opt for land resettlement, but the conditions are very, very difficult. Yes, in the oil region, as you've seen recently, I had to instruct the Bulisa District Land Board to rescind most of the approvals that they had done, because those approvals had actually violated Section 27 of the Land Act, which I just read. When I went on the ground, I visited literally everybody and found one particular person had land in over 20 oil wells. And then you say one person is claiming about over 20 oil wells and claiming compensation. But the oil company could not access the oil well, the land in the oil wells. So the oil company had the paper and court order in favor of one individual. But this land is communal land, and the oil company who wants to go to the oil well cannot access because the community has said over our dead body. So there was a stalemate. Actually, the officials from Total, when they went there, they were detained for 3 hours by the locals. And they said, over our dead body, you are not going to access this oil well. This is our land. If you don't compensate us and you compensate the other person, then you will not work here. You will not access this place. So when I went, I actually realized that all the approvals, majority of the approvals, had flouted that Section 27, which I had read, which stated clearly that whether you are acquiring land individually or communally under customary land tenure, you must use the values and norms of customary land ownership and involve the family and the spouse, and should not exclude the children and the spouse, and all this was not. So I got like one person would have said, I have sold the land, when the land is customary land held by family and community. So we are now trying to rectify, to invoke that Section 27 in the oil region. When you see him moving, you know that my time is up. I want to end with awareness, to say with the awareness we shall really need your support, and we have all the required awareness campaign materials that I would want to pick the proposal that somebody muted here, that we need a platform of sharing information. I will organize together with my ministry and find a mechanism within which we can meet you people and have a platform created so that we harmonize our messages. Thank you very much.
Yes, give her another round of applause. She's a lady of substance. She tackles things. They are hard stuff, and she's not scared of tackling hard things. And I think with her, maybe we will go much further. I want to thank you, this audience, for having been such a wonderful audience, but I also want to thank the audience that has been watching this debate live on NTV Uganda, across Uganda, and those who are following us, who are streaming, Ugandans in diaspora. Thank you very much for having been a part of this. But for you now, we are coming to the end of the transmission. but the discussion will continue here for a couple of minutes. But for those who have been watching on TV, join me in thanking them with a round of applause as they take leave, because we shall continue. Thank you very much. NTV Uganda, kwaheri for you.
NTV, turning on your world.
The Timeline is brought to you by
MTN, everywhere you go.
And
DSTV, feel every moment.
Now, one of the bigger conversations was a tweet from Amelia Chambade, and she said, and I quote, "Had the worst experience with employing youth, selfish, inefficient, and unreliable. Please style up." Now, youth have been called all sorts of things. They've been called unemployed, chifesi, all these things. And they wake up and scour Facebook and Twitter and local newspapers to try and find work. At least that's how a lot of youth felt when they fired back and said maybe the problem was the people they were learning from, the people above them. Of course, remember the popular phrase by Yala Member of Parliament, Koto in their puhu, a phrase that has become common to situations that people don't understand. Situations like prolific journalist Andrew Mwenda showing up to defend the $6 billion handshake.
So remember that no single African country in post-colonial Africa has ever collected a capital gains tax from an international oil firm. Now, for me, this was an extraordinary demonstration of civic virtue, what we call public spiritedness, a pursuit of the public interest.
A lot of tweets started to wonder what he was doing there, but apparently it was completely legal and above board. They actually put an application in the paper for people who wanted to go forward and defend or not the $6 billion handshake. You know, it's sad because I would have wanted to go if they had put that application on Twitter. Now, of course, a lot of us online was shocked by this video. A lot of us thought, but it was a campaign encouraging people to buy Uganda, build Uganda. And we think it's a great initiative. We don't know if it was a pun intended to play to the fact that we have a young economy. After all is said and done, please, boo-boo. Twitter was awash with praise of KCCA's teenage sensation Alan Okello after his hat trick against the club of the people on Duparaka. We are glad that more of football Twitter is coming out to talk about local soccer beyond the Uganda Cranes and not just, you know, Manchester United and Arsenal and international football. Now, of course, we can't end the timeline without congratulating Timeline Obi Biwol and all the Man U fans in Uganda for their EFL win. I mean, as close as it gets anyway. It was great respite from their 6th position in the Premier League.
Header off the post! Dinked in towards the Ibrahimovic, who puts Manchester United 3.
The most prestigious cup in English football, the Emirates FA Cup, is now. Now, DSTV is bringing you all the action live and in HD on all DSTV bouquets. Subscribe to any DSTV bouquet and watch all these matches live and in HD. DSTV, feel every moment. Well, now is a good time to make use of more cash. You can get up to 1 million shillings in cash. All right, courtesy of the great report, MTN, *165, *5 hash. Maybe for your DSTV subscription, maybe to start your business, and boo-boo. From us here at The Timeline, thank you very much for being part of the show and for watching us every single week. Let's catch up next time. Happy surfing, goodbye, and God bless.
The Timeline was brought to you by
Funa Saizio with my Paka Paka from MTN. Dial *160 *1 hash to talk for 24 hours with a bundle that suits your pocket. MTN, everywhere you go.
And
Emirates FA Cup will be available to all DSTV customers from DSTV Premium through to DSTV Access from the 18th of February. Catch it live on SuperSport 3, 5 and SuperSport Select 2. Only on DSTV.
NTV, turning on your world.
Is a special day with Santa Lucia. Santa Lucia, you've got to taste it to believe it.
Hey, Coca-Cola?
Oh, you're in luck. It's happy hour.